We are live here for episode 7 of Ignite That Light. I'm super excited to have my special guest today at King Ari Press, Stephanie, and our topic: stepping out of out of your comfort zone. I'm super excited to talk about this topic and to speak with you, Stephanie, and want to again welcome all the listeners, viewers of this podcast, Ignite That Light. The purpose or the mission of this podcast, as I've stated before, I'll say it again, it's to motivate, inspire, and connect more deeply with others. And if you feel like you've been motivated, inspired, or you have connected, or feel like you're connecting more deeply with any of us, feel free to search us out on your favorite streaming service, follow, subscribe, do all the things that you can do to support this if you enjoy this content. And I want to again thank Stephanie, editor and publisher at King Ari Press on X. Appreciate you being here. Welcome. And why don't you just give people some of your background, just maybe a quick history of you, and maybe how you first started on X, I guess, because that's where we met.
Perfect. Yeah, Chris, thanks for inviting me. I mean, I think we met on Spaces, right? Yeah. So
Yep.
I feel like everybody's meeting on Spaces. Like that's like a gold standard. If you want to connect, you just go to Spaces. You're going to connect with your tribe. So kind of like I got back on X. I have an old account like somewhere. It was old Twitter, the old Twitter files. Maybe somebody should have that, like old Twitter files bring up like these ancient tweets, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like an era. So I got out of that era and now I'm stepping back into the X era, but with a different purpose and with a different goal, because I really moved into the publishing realm. It's all new, and not new like I'm new to the publishing, to the writing, to any of that, but new in creating this press to be like, and I say it in other places, but like an open door for authors to kind of find a niche for them that maybe doesn't fit like the traditional publishing, maybe doesn't fit the self-publishing. And I think X kind of helps connect on the real level. Like I didn't even have a website and I was already connecting with potential clients. And really for me, it's just, I want to be in that world, and X provides a platform to find people that are like-minded. But even beyond like what I'm doing with publishing, like I met you and it was just like, we're in this like basically comedy writing room. It doesn't necessarily serve my publishing purposes, but man, that the liveliness of that and just the creativity.
Oh yeah.
I want to be around that all day.
Oh yeah, it's a very creative group that we found.
They're awesome, right? Amber Champagne, the Champagne Room was like my first introduction. I think you were there.
Oh yeah.
That was hilarious. But yeah, so that's me being back on X, formerly Twitter, but I like the X model. It feels fresh. It feels like a fresh take to build what I want to build for myself and then connect with people, like-minded people.
That's awesome. No, yeah, it's great. I think I'm noticing a trend. I know a lot of people have stepped away from the platform, for a variety of reasons over the past year. But those who have stuck around, those who have leaned into the changes, have found, I think, some positive result, or at least they've connected with more of the people that they want to connect with. So it turns out that there are probably more positives than negatives, although change is always going to be hard. And I just appreciate you sticking with the app or coming back when it's after the change to X and finding your tribe. I think it's fantastic, and I'm glad that we've met.
I mean, honestly, those accounts are probably still live, and I could just use them as burner accounts and like.
Yeah, totally could use them.
Yeah, right.
Burner accounts.
Do that. No, I like where I'm at. So.
Yeah, no need to use them for trolling purposes. We don't support that on this podcast. We don't support that in any way, shape, or form. We're not encouraging that. But I mean, it's up to you. I support free will. So
I would only bot myself, I think.
Okay. There you go. No, but I appreciate you giving that introduction, Stephanie, for sure. And it's right. You're right. I think, not to totally go on a tangent, but the idea of connecting with others, it's the power of the X Spaces. And I encourage people who haven't taken advantage of Spaces and haven't taken advantage of the opportunity to meet like-minded individuals, or even people that might challenge your opinion. You'll find a lot of people there in X on X who can give reasonable, rational, intelligent, articulate conversation, or at least give you some food for thought. So I encourage people, like, again, finding people like Stephanie on the app. I didn't expect that. I'm grateful for the connection, and I really do appreciate you being here to talk about this topic.
And same. And honestly, kind of like off that, I think you pick a perfect title, because I think a lot of what you experience on X is out of your comfort zone. Like what you're just saying, like if you're on Spaces and somebody's not agreeing with you, man, if you engage with that, that's not comfort level stuff. That's not like chicken noodle soup, that's
absolutely
that's
not
something spicy, right? That's something that's gonna like burn a little bit. But
oh yeah,
it's important to engage out of your comfort zone in things that matter. And I think like all of this, like what we're talking about, it's just because it matters. And I think we take positions based on things that matter to us, and maybe understanding that the value of what somebody offers, it's important to them. And so I think it's also then important to get out of your comfort zone and try to meet somebody in that place and understand them, because I think there's value in those relationships, probably far surpassing just the ones where it's just easy and you get along, where there's just no even slight resistance. I think when you have a little of resistance, there's passion, and there's you can build stronger foundations. As a matter of fact, some of the closest friends that I have, like the people that I know have my back in life, I don't agree with. And when we have not agreed is actually what has solidified, like they're the people I would go to and trust, because we could care for each other beyond our disagreements. And I thought that was like really important. So I just want to say to all the Xers out there, which not generationally, but X as in Twitter.
That's right.
Formerly Twitter. Engage with those people that make you uncomfortable. Just listen to them, be compassionate, be understanding, because that's where real growth and the challenge is. But I think it's worth it in the end.
Absolutely, Stephanie, you're spot on. I think that's again one of the key components of what you can use the tool for. People might use it for a variety of different purposes, and I'm not going to choose that for anybody. Like that's up to you how you want to use it. But that is definitely one way to use the app, to use the platform, is to grow and to step out of your comfort zone, which is perfect. The perfect segue for this topic. And right. I did want to ask you, I mean, in terms of stepping out of your comfort zone, I know you have a really awesome backstory, and I was curious if you could share just a specific experience or a moment where you stepped out of your comfort zone, and what motivated you to take that leap.
Yeah. I feel like I do live out of my comfort zone in almost every situation. Yeah. And I think that you have to have a first step. So for me, that first step, when my husband and I got married, well, prior to getting married, when we met, we both had said, hey, I want to move to Colorado. Like almost like, the thing where you say it at the same time and you're like, what, you do too? And like, you're surprised. It was like that kind of moment where we're like, I want to move too. And then we said Colorado. And we didn't. When we got married, that's not what we did right away. It was like a couple of years after. And I don't even know how like the part of it happened where we finally said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Because it almost didn't seem to have like that a decisions made, a decisions researched, and then I know point A to point B, and I'm going to take these steps. It wasn't like that. I think it was a vacation, and it was beautiful weather. The mountains were overwhelmingly beautiful. It was like snow on top of them. And it was like remembering maybe a little bit of one of those things that we kind of had a dream for. So that's the easy part. Like that's the dream. But when you walk into those dream moments, oh my gosh, it's a lot harder than dreaming about it. And the reality just isn't the same. It's not the thing you prepare for, I guess is what I'm saying. Like you can try to prepare for the reality, but it's not the same thing as actually like living that reality. And so for us, why it was so difficult is when we made the decision, we actually were there and we found an apartment. We couldn't even see it because somebody was living in it. So we're like, okay, well, we left and we talked to the manager, and he said, well, if you want the apartment, they're going to move out. And you have to put a deposit on it because I have a lot of people that are interested in it, but you were the first ones that asked about it. So I'm going to give it to you. Sight unseen. We signed the lease. out of state, many miles away, and never having a chance to look at it. And we're like, okay, well, we've already now put a deposit on something that, one, we don't know if we're going to do. Now we have to find jobs. So my husband went to find a job. He applied, he accepted a position. And then when we get there, he calls like to set up like, okay, I'm in Colorado. I'm ready to come in, just let me know what the next steps are. And they're like, oh, the guy that hired you was fired. And he's like, what? Like he was fired? And he's like, yeah, you have to re-interview. And the thing about that was the guy that they fired, I think, was close to retirement. And my husband's like, that just doesn't seem right. Like, cause he knew he had talked to the guy through the interview. So he kind of knew where he was. And it just was like this really odd thing. And he's like, I don't really want to work for a company like that. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. And he's like, I don't know what I should do, but I just don't feel like I can take it. We're in Colorado right now. We've put a deposit on. We have a month's worth of savings to like make this happen. And the job that we were kind of using as like the stepping stone for that dream to become a reality is not that it wasn't there. It was, you had to say no to it. And it was a moral decision. It wasn't like, I guess if we were practical, and maybe we were too naive to be practical, we would have just said, oh, well, we need the money, so it doesn't matter. But then you also start to think, well, if they treat this person that way, would they treat me this way? And, what guarantees do you really have on that kind of life? What are you really signing up to? So I trust his integrity, and I didn't push it. And yet, I don't know if we were scared. Like, I think we were, again, just naive, but we also knew, okay, we have a month to find jobs. And so that's what we did, is we went out and I worked at a design center in a fabric library, and it was awesome. I loved it. And my husband just took like a part-time job and then continued to like look for like more permanent work. Way leads to way. And none of our family, until even just like a couple of months ago, ever knew that we were ever in a situation where we wouldn't have made it like that. Wow. And that wasn't the only time that was true, but that was the biggest time that was true, because we took this huge risk. And honestly, it's like, I still would take that risk. Like, you tell me the situation, I'd be like, I'd still take it. And I even think like, and to be honest, every time we've moved has been that reality. Like, we were willing to give up all of our work and do what we felt was right. And so I guess what I'm going to say is like, I live out of the comfort zone. But what I mean by that is I have a resilience now to living in this zone. I have a resilience to being out of my comfort zone completely, because I've been there, and I have courage now. I know I can do it. So I know I'll be okay. And even when I'm not okay, I know I'll be okay, because it's worth the risk. I guess I weigh it. The risk is worth it.
No, that's amazing, Stephanie, what you've just described. So just to make sure I captured this properly in my notes, you said you moved to Colorado with your husband, found an apartment, but you found an apartment, but you had to put a deposit on it, sight unseen. You hadn't even really seen what was inside there. Yeah. You had no jobs when you moved there.
Nope.
And the first job that your husband found, his boss had just gotten fired. The one who he would be working for got fired. Mm-hmm. And he had to basically leave his job and you both had to find completely new work from there.
Completely new work.
All that. And to me, that sounds like a ton of uncertainty, a ton of challenge, and you still found a way through that. And I would say that takes a lot of, like you said, the resilience. It takes a lot of I don't know, maybe grit is another word that I think comes to mind, because I think people who get confronted with these types of challenges, like even your first job or the first job that your husband took, that's and then having to walk away from that, like that's a punch to the stomach. That's a complete that's so I don't know. To me, I'm putting myself in his shoes for a second and thinking how I would feel. And I mean, I think a lot of people would probably just sort of bite the bullet and just sort of just suck it up and work there. Exactly. But the fact that he and you both, chose, like, made this decision, like, no, this is, a moral decision. I need to, we need to step out of this. And to me, that again, all these things are decisions that you made, and
Right.
all of them were I think I wouldn't say it just, there's so much like uncertainty surrounding what you decided to do every single time, and to be able to do that and to still feel comfortable or confident that you're going to be okay in the end, that's admirable. And I think that's I mean, I'm learning a lot about you right now. Just the fact that you did all that, and again, you're persevering. I think that's that they're thriving, I would say. So that's
I mean,
fantastic.
honestly, I don't think I would have started a press if I hadn't gone through and I'll say that part of it is when you do that, prior to that moment, you didn't know you could do it. So something like when you do that thing that is completely out of your comfort zone, but see, it was attached to a dream for us. So we did have this as something like that. No, this is something that we really, really want to do. So we had high passion to do it. And so there's something in that resilience of like, okay, now that I've done it, I know I can do it because I just did the hardest thing. I just did the more difficult thing, and I'm still okay. And even if I think some people would say you weren't okay, that was, I couldn't have done that. And
That's what I would say too, actually.
And I mean, and it's probably true. We were a little bit naive, but I want to say something too about my husband. Is he has high integrity, and I think one of the reasons that we really get along is because we are very kind, but both of us have this tenacity and courage that's kind of like below the surface. And I've seen it in him, and I think he's seen it in me. And I think that tenacity allows us to do what most people might consider is strange or improbable, and he's more cautious than I am in a lot of ways. But I think that we both have that. If it's worth it, it's worth doing. And he kind of challenges me because he sets goals and he just does them, and that's always amazing. But I think together, that tenacity that we have, you said grit, and I have a friend who is a rabbi, and he always said, Stephanie, you have chutzpah, which is grit. Like you go at it.
Another word for it, yeah.
You're like a little bit of a fighter. And I think sometimes you need that in life, because I think everybody experiences difficult things. But who you are in those difficult things does matter. The decisions you make through those things matters more than its results. Like in my estimation, who I am through something is far more important than if my bank account's full. And that might be just me, but I would be uncomfortable if I gave up something of myself and didn't try to do something. And I think more because of what I've just told you about the Colorado trip.
Yeah.
Again, that's built that resilience in me, because now that I know I've done it, now I know I can do it, and now I will continue to know I can do it. Like that'll never go away.
That self-confidence is powerful, right? Once you've gotten through the hardest parts or the harder parts, and you realize that you can do it, and it's a worst case scenario, you'd be fine. I think that's something that I think more people felt, right? The idea that you can get through these things with that perseverance, with that tenacity, with that chutzpah or the grit, like we talked about. There are ways of getting through difficult times. Don't get me wrong. I think every single one of those decisions, my stomach would have been like, I don't know about that. I don't know. Like, I still don't know if this is the right thing.
Right.
It's gonna work out. But I think once it does work out again, and it just reminds me of this one example, and I'll just say it like this and make it quick. But the idea that we all have these belief systems in our head, or we believe that certain things are going to play out a certain way, and then when that situation occurs or it plays out,
right,
it's not usually as bad as we initially thought.
Right.
At least for me, that happens, I would say, more than 80% of the time when I'm dreading, say, going to my annual review at work. I'm like, all right, this is going to be awful. I'm going to get a awful review, and or a basic review. It's going to be a mid-level, and it doesn't end up playing out that way because we have these stories we tell ourselves, and it's easy to think
Right.
like, well, I'm going to believe that. But I think some of it, for me, what would benefit is having that positive kind of self-talk, which I think you are just basically describing. It's like you don't, maybe you're not doing that, but there's a sort of like a belief, the self-belief that I think just really, it's a magnificent thing to behold once you have it.
Maybe it's like that action overcomes that doubt, because, you know, in the whole writing world too, and every writer that's listening would know this, is that doubt is just there. It's always there. Like, am I good enough? And you know, and so I think there are things that are walls for me that maybe I wouldn't, I would stay in the background. I wouldn't necessarily push through that wall. And, you know, so it's interesting how just because in one area of my life that translates, and it really helps that me and my husband have very similar tenacity in that, and that we make these decisions together. Like, I'll just add another example to this, very similar to the Colorado move, is his mother was ill and we needed to move again. And I remember he said to me, he's like, Stephanie, I think I need to be close to family. And I said, yeah, I think that's true too. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go to work and, you know, we'll figure this out. And I was like, yeah, don't worry, we will. I think that's the right thing to do. And I knew what he meant. I'm quitting my job today. We're going to move to be back home. Like, I know he didn't have to say I'm quitting today. Like,
Wow.
he didn't have to tell me. I knew that that's what he meant. When he said he needed to go back to be with family, he said he was going to make the drastic choice and we'll just figure out when we get there. And I knew he was right. And so my faith has a lot to do with it too. Is like, I'm going to pray, make sure things are okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, I'm not, you know, there's things I can't control, but, you know, saying yes is one of those things. And the amazing thing of that was a very small window opened up that a company very near his family's home, he could transfer from the job he was working at. And that window was only open for a month. So he transferred. He was close to home. I think it was like within an hour drive.
Yeah.
And that transfer, basically that opportunity really was a live opportunity for a month. And then the possibility just evaporated. So here we are saying, he's like, I'm going to quit, and they won't let him. And they say, well, hey, how about this? And, you know, credit to him, because I think he just is such a great person to have on a team, a great worker. And so they really didn't want to lose him as an asset. So they were very gracious to him. But the reality for both of him and I, and because we had done the difficult move already, is that when he says, I'm going to go into work today, but I think we need to move back home. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's right. Is I know he's saying I'm quitting, and I'm saying, yeah, I know you're going to quit today. So let's see how this works out. But this is the building block. This is the thing that we have built a certain resilience. Like I said, it's not in everything, but it seems like in that one area for sure. And I don't think we've ever lost anything worth keeping in those decisions, because we've gained too much more of who we are, and I would rather have that.
No, you have it's clear you both have a strong a purpose, right? An understanding of like what your values are and your value system. And I think that's also something that is worth exploring maybe in a future conversation, because I think you both do. Based on what you've described, it's you're not going to be super flexible with kind of what you know, against things that you really genuinely believe in. And I think that's those core values. I think they resonate with me because my background, I have some military experience, and we have our core values, and it's one of those things where I just sort of I've always remembered them, and it's been over 20 years since I joined, you know, over 20 years ago. So like I got out after a 6-year enlistment. But the thing is, like, you never forget that when you realize kind of what those core values are, and you start to kind of internalize those things, and you say, well, that actually is how I believe, or how I operate. It's again, I think it's powerful to have something like that, and to understand the importance of not backing down against those values. So.
No, I agree. And I think like sometimes we, like what you were saying about going in and having like a review, and you feel that you build up that dialogue in your head, like this is going to go bad or whatever. there is also like knowing yourself, know thyself is kind of true. And I think part of your value system is that as well. And that also means that when you fail, you have something to hold on to that is more tangible, more real than your failure. Because sometimes that your expectations don't align with the reality, like I said. And so like having oh, we're going to have a job, we're going to move to Colorado, great, we're going to be taken care of, and then he'll have a job, then I'll go find a job, and we'll be fine. And that's not what happens. But then there's also the thing that's not a failure. That's just a moment in time that you move past and you make new decisions, you adjust. But your values, if they're true and if they hold water and they, I think, bring good to the world and bring good in your surroundings, and it produces like these good qualities of like honesty and integrity and love and care, like those should be preserved, and making decisions based on those, those will never go wrong. Like I don't think you fail in that, like even when it doesn't look like success. And I think we can hinge on what success looks like, but I think when you love others and when you care for people and you have integrity on those decisions around that's the gold mine. That's the real success, I think.
For sure. And I think that you're speaking, I think, a powerful, you're giving us some nuggets of wisdom here. And I want to make sure that people are taking notes. Make sure you get your pens out, your Moleskine notebooks, jot these down. What they say, the cool kids call it dropping alpha. That's what she's doing today. So appreciate you doing that, Stephanie. This is good stuff. I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's important, it's going back to, like, I think that the topic here, right? The importance of leaving our comfort zones. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you think are the maybe psychological and emotional benefits of actually embracing new experiences? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Kind of what we talked about. Like, I think resilience is key. And I do think, though, there's the thing of and sorry about that. That's my computer. You have this thing where you know who you are, so you're going to be that person, so you're going to carry that resilience. So that the psychology of that is you're kind of solidifying some aspect of your personality, and that, I think that's good. Like, it's good to be mutable and teachable and grow in those ways, but there are certain things that I think you need to solidify, and knowing your character and solidifying this resilience towards stepping out of comfort zones, moving and trying new things. I think that's just going to help you and still being teachable. And I think that's the irony here is we move to very different situations because we're open to new experiences. So ironically, this thing that seems like such a solid quality in us is the one that makes us most expansive, I guess, in where we'll go, who we'll talk to, who our friends are going to be. Like, we'll talk to anybody, we'll meet anybody, we'll go any place. And, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of boundaries because we've built that resilience. And I think that's a huge psychological hurdle that once, like I said, once you get over that, once you do that thing and acknowledge it too. I think sometimes you do things and you've not acknowledged how difficult maybe it was. Like, you avoid seeing it, and then you're like, so then you don't know that's this, you're telling yourself a different story. Like what you were saying, you're telling yourself like, oh, this is hard, this is difficult. But no, you're not seeing that you just did something amazing because you did get out of your comfort zone. You did do this really hard thing. And yeah, it's not pretty. And I'm telling you, it's not. But man, that's the thing you need to tell yourself, because that resilience, I think, is a change and a mindset change that is very expansive. I think it opens you up to new people, new places, new opportunities. And I think we all could do with that. Like, we could all be out of our comfort zone with each other and our experiences, in the sense that that resilience will kind of hold you through it, or it keeps you going in that way. But the other one I would say, and this isn't for me, but we realized that we were doing this for our family and for our friends, because there is a point where once you've done it and you can always do it, you're also showing the people around you they can do it too. And one of the things I realized that we should have done is told them how difficult it was. Like, I don't know if we really got that part across. I think they just saw the success side, which wasn't success, but it was just like that we were okay. Like, oh, this is just them. They're just moving. It's not a big deal, but they didn't know the struggle within that. And I wish we would have communicated that more, because I think that would have helped them see it differently. And yet I think we've seen it in our family. Like, most of them are young, the next generation, they're moving and they're doing new things. And I think like we could be an example for them so that they can see to do it. So other people are watching what you're doing. And so these opportunities are great opportunities, not just for yourself, but it expands the worlds of those that are close to you too. Like, you're opening the world for them as well as yourself. And I think that's just as important.
I think those are fantastic points, Stephanie. And I think you reminded me of this book I read, and I'm trying to find it on I actually I did the audiobook version of it, but it's called The Gap and the Gain. And I mentioned this actually to our good friend Mindrunner, actually, on his podcast, Mental Health Mondays. Go check him out on YouTube if you haven't already. But this book called The Gap and the Gain, and it's about the idea that we like to compare to the optimal or to what the ideal is sometimes in our heads, right? We think, okay, well, this person, I saw this fancy influencer, having this fancy lunch or the steak dinner, and I'm not doing that. I'm here with my top ramen and my bottled water, or my tap, whatever. Like, no, but I mean, it's just like but like there's this idea that we sometimes compare ourselves to the gap in what we think we want, but we should be acknowledging and reflecting on what we accomplished, right? And how far we've come as people, and as and just, I think reflecting on our accomplishments is something that, I don't know, for me, I have a hard time doing that and looking back and saying, I've done a lot. Like, I actually have to do that for the annual reviews now. And I actually did that. I did that this past year. And once you start typing this list of things or accomplishments, it's cool. Wait, actually, like, this should be enough to help me get a promotion. Like, this is a lot of stuff. Like, you don't realize it until you start looking back and saying, I did all this, or I contributed to all of this. And so what you're saying really resonates with me, because I think that it's better to, I think, look back and say, maybe it wasn't all successes, right? Or maybe we didn't achieve everything we wanted, but we still made progress. And I think taking a step, taking a moment to reflect back on those things I think it's hugely important for everyone, because it's easy just to get caught up in the minutia and kind of the day to day. And, I tell you what, right now, I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So I mean, like, that's a problem. Not just me getting old, which I am, but I think there's so much that we could be doing to better, I think, just understand that we're all trying our best, and we have come a long way. And again, if you're trying to achieve something, recognize that you have, you can set yourself a goal or a plan, but also, if you're making this plan and you're even improving by 1% a day, right? Over time you're going to get there. So I thought that was a powerful thing, and also, you talked about. You just inspired me to think about this book called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And there's this quote in there. The title of it actually is from that Theodore Roosevelt speech that he gave in 1910, at the Sorbonne, where he talks about how it's not the critic that counts, but the man who, it's actually the man who's in the arena, right? And his face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. It's a beautiful quote, right? It's a beautiful passage, because he talks about how right. I'll read the last part of it. It's he who actually strives to do the deeds, he who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And I think that's just a powerful statement or a quote, or just a part of the speech that Roosevelt gave, because it just, you made the effort to move to Colorado, to get these jobs, to get the apartment. Like, those are all, again, he wasn't talking about you specifically, Stephanie, but
No.
but the idea that like you keep trying to achieve these things and you don't, I mean, you're going to be able to look back and say, we've come a long way, you and your husband, and you've made it through some really challenging times. And there are a lot of people who won't even take that step, right? They won't take the step to,
Risk.
like the risk, or just to give themselves the ability to say, like, we're gonna make this, cross country move from wherever, and we're gonna figure it out. Like that, to me,
Yeah.
extremely difficult to make that all, like, make the connections work. But the fact that you did it inspires me. So I want to call that out there, because it's, a vulnerability and being willing to kind of lean into the discomfort. It's this I wrote this down. It says it's showing up and being seen even when there's no guarantee of success. Like the idea that, I mean, you're living to me, what sounds like an authentic life, right? You're sticking to your morals and your value systems, and you're making the moves that align with your actual true values and yourself. And I think that's, again, it's inspiring to me, and I imagine it's inspiring to a bunch of other people too.
And honestly, like I think too, when you do that for yourself, kind of like what you were talking about with the gap in the game, the comparison game goes away.
Yeah.
Because you're not living anybody else's life, because you're banking on failure, meaning that, like, you're banking on the risk of failure. And so if you were comparing yourself, you're not banking on the risk of failure. You're banking on the success of someone else, because you've seen through the window and it's all glitz and glam. It's everything that you've always wanted. But who's going to follow you into a dirty trench, or like just the difficulty, like when they're like, oh, because now, to go back to that, maybe this is not right, but sometimes the right decision is when everybody is telling you it's wrong because of the risk. And I'm not saying do it because of the risk and everybody's telling you that it's wrong. It's just, why are you doing it? And finding out, like, what does that resonant quality of, like, I want to do this because I imagine, a really great life. The mountains are beautiful, like whatever it is. And then the tenacity to go after it and kind of put it on the line for it. Most people will tell you you're crazy. And I think maybe that is why a lot of people don't take the risk, and I'm not saying everybody wants to take that risk. It is easy to be comfortable, and there's nothing wrong with staying in one place and building a beautiful life there. Like that's awesome. And there's other forms of those risks, like mine looks different, but I do think that there is something about living your life. And when you put that risk, when you get out of that comfort zone, not a lot of people are going to follow you there, because it does not look like the pretty picture. It's not the success story. They're not following you into, oh, I only have like a month's worth of savings and I don't know if I'm going to get a job, not that they're not going to be your friends. And, we weren't looking for support. We weren't looking for like help. We were just like, we're going to make it work. This is our decision. We're not backing down from the decision. And if it fails, okay, then we just move back and we figure it out. We'll go where there's a job.
Yeah.
But it is our life, and each of us, now this will be true, each of us has only our life to live. You have to make that count, because that's the story. That's not a goal. That's a reality. Like, you're alive, you're breathing. It's your life. Absolutely. So being brave in your own life and living to that fullness wherever you are and whatever that looks like, I think that's what's so hugely important. And that is risky, and that is definitely not a comparison game, because nobody is going to want to be in your shoes. No. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to be in my shoes now looking back at it. So,
no, that's tough.
I will do it again, but would I want to? No.
No, there you go. At least again, that's honest. That's being honest with us, and I appreciate that, Stephanie. But I don't know that I would have wanted to do it in the first place. But the fact that you did it was awesome. No, I think it's again, like I said, it's inspiring, and I think hopefully it's a powerful thing for others to hear and to witness, because I think it's great that you did that, and that's something that you wanted to do. I was going to ask or kind of segue into like the next part of this conversation about things like goal setting. You mentioned earlier, like, taking that step, like, being willing to kind of take that first step. Do you have is there something intentional that we haven't already talked about that maybe you would do? Like, I'm just trying to think about practical advice for people who are listening to this later on or watching. What's some sort of maybe like a few tips or just what you think would be helpful for this? So people that maybe are struggling with kind of getting out of their comfort zone, but maybe really they feel like they need to.
I honestly, I'm a big fan of research. Like, even when it was Colorado before we took that leap, I researched the state. I kind of tried to fall in love with the state, and I wanted to know about it. I wanted to know like who the governor was. I wanted to know when it was established. I wanted to know what the state bird was, what the state flower was. I kind of learned all of that. I wanted to learn about the area, like the area we were going to live, but also like the different zones, what was the climate. So I would say that like that wasn't the step to get there, but that maybe gave me a picture in my mind and created a certain tangible aspect to a dream, because it's easy to imagine something that you have no context of. Like, dreams can be weird and disconnected. And sometimes you have an idea of something that doesn't fit a reality. And like, reality is pretty hardcore, as we just talked about. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's like, I'm big on research, but I want to, like, not what I've talked about so far, just mentioned it, is just starting this press, which I started it this year. I also did a lot of research, but I treated it like a business before I even had the business. I took myself seriously in that business. Even when I created the business, I have a contract with myself for the business. It's a sole proprietor LLC. So, I'm looking to collaborate with people and bring that in. But like, when I was doing it, I gave presentations about my business. I made sure that I looked in all the statistics. And I also know that when I do that, it's not set in stone. I mean, it's not solid. It's a moving target in a lot of ways, but I do need to have some framework that I'm working towards. And so if you have a dream, I think that's one thing. The next step is really get into like, what is that? What is the reality? And listen sometimes to critics, not the people that are just saying, don't do it, but listen to like practical things, like saying, hey, I know you think it's like this, but here's something that I've experienced, and listen to that, because you shouldn't be afraid of the critic. Sometimes you should be afraid of the critic. Believe me, if you're out there listening, sometimes you need to be afraid of the critic. Sometimes critics aren't nice, but sometimes critics are really right, spot on. Yeah. It's something you need. You need to be tempered with the dream a little bit. You need to wrap it in some form of reality. And granted, on the other side, it might not look like that, but it really helped me to know where we were going, what we were going to do, what we were going to see, and plan towards something so that it wasn't just like smoke and mirrors. Like, I really wanted to see what it could be and work towards it. So that way I kind of had something to like aim for. And if you don't have that, you're kind of like shooting in the dark. And I just don't think that's a healthy way to approach it. I think there is a practical nature to it. But I never let that stop me from doing something. If I have the cards on the table and I know what the picture looks like and it's still something I want, which we both have to check. Donnie will be like, I don't know if that's the right thing. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, okay, we maybe need to think about this some more.
Yeah, do more homework. Yeah.
Exactly. So definitely like huge on research, because stepping out of your comfort zone, you do kind of want to know what you're stepping into. I mean, sure. It's not easy, but you can kind of arm yourself with the right facts and it'll help.
No, I think that resonates with me as well, Stephanie. I think, doing your homework, doing your own research, painting that picture, like you said, making things more tangible, right? I think that's the words you used. And listening to critics, but not all of them, because not all feedback is should be weighed equally, right? I think you and I both agree with that. But, yeah, but sure. I think that those are all powerful things and powerful tips, because I think for me that's my wife and I, when we moved from Washington, D.C. to Nashville, it
Mhm.
took us some time to kind of do that homework and decide where to go. I got into a couple different business schools. She
Mhm.
was able to find a job in a couple different cities. So we could have moved to a bunch of different, or at least three. We had three different cities to choose from. Ended up choosing here because it was the right fit for both of us. But it was a decision
Yeah.
that was it was a leap of faith for both, right? Because I've never gone to grad school before, and
That's cool.
we've never lived in this city to like at all, like either individually before we met each other or together. So
Mhm.
it was a complete leap of faith to get here. And I would say that we've done a couple things like that where it was a true leap of faith. And it takes some, it definitely takes, like you said, like a little bit of that grit, but it's totally worth it when
Yes.
once you do it and you achieve it, then it's like, wait a minute, like that was, maybe that wasn't so bad. Maybe we could do this
Right?
again.
Like what
Yeah.
you said before.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but we did a lot of research. Go back to the point, like we did a lot of
Mhm.
homework on like the
Yeah.
quality of the schools here, again, the job market, the
Right.
cost of living, all those things helped us paint that picture. Like you said, we visited as well before we came and actually made it our home. But it definitely, I think doing your homework, I think for me,
Yeah.
makes me feel much more comfortable before stepping out of my comfort zone. And I think, kind of, I don't want to make this about me specifically, but
No, I
this
like
this
it because
whole
I'm with you.
there you go. Well, this podcast as well, like it's a brand new thing, and I didn't even know that I could even do it. So the fact that we're here to get today, again, super grateful for you being here, and we've gone
Awesome.
already 45 minutes. I'm impressed.
No way.
The time's flying by. If you have time, we can keep going. I don't want to rush
No,
you
I
off,
mean,
but
I do love this. Like, Chris, I just think, like, of course you need to be doing this. Like, I've heard you on Spaces, but like when you
well,
said
thank you.
this, to me, it was so obvious. Like, okay, it could have been going for like years and I would have believed it because it feels that way. You just
This
feel
is
very natural to it.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was only episode 7, 7 weeks,
That's awesome. I
literally
know.
less than 2 months. So
Oh
appreciate
my
you saying
gosh.
that. But
No,
yeah,
really.
appreciate that. Kind words. But yeah, I think I did some research, like going back to the point, and I made a list, or I found a list of a few things that maybe would help our listeners here. Kind of maybe, this is what the Google machine says: lead by example, right? It says, sometimes the best way to inspire someone is to show them that you're willing to step outside your comfort zone. Like again, they can.
100%.
You said people are watching you. That's important.
Right. Hmm.
Provide support. If there's somebody who is considering stepping out of their comfort zone, maybe just say like, I'm here to help you, or to be with you. Like just offer some unwavering support. Maybe they might just need that extra little push.
Hmm.
Set small achievable goals, like we talked about that. You can make larger leaps eventually, but those smaller kind of steps into that direction can help. Offer information, resources, we've talked about that. Success stories, tell people. Again, I think if you telling people about your story,
Yeah.
it should inspire some people to maybe
I hope
consider taking that
so.
step. I would hope so too, and I
I
think
mean,
it does.
honestly, I should have told more people about. I will say, like, I don't think we should hold back our struggles. Like, and I think I
No,
see that on X a lot, where people do share, I think, with some honesty about like difficulties and overcoming it. And I think that is important because if people see the success, they still might not think they can do it. But if they see that you struggle, then they can kind of relate and be like, okay, if I struggle, this person also struggled, so maybe I can get through it, And I think that's more important to show the whole picture.
for sure, Stephanie. And you reminded me of this bias. I love reading about like our human biases, and one of them survivorship bias. And it's the idea of like, you go to like, you look at like these mutual funds or these, these investments, and it's like, you know, look at this one. It had a million% return over the past 10 years. And it's like, you know what, like, that's fine. But like, there were like probably about a million different funds that like completely disappeared in the past 10 years. But
Yeah.
like, you don't really hear about these things. The same with startup
Oh,
culture, right? Like, I mean, like Facebooks and the Airbnbs of the world,
yes.
there are so many other social media platforms that have just completely gone by the wayside. You only hear about the success story. So I think helping people hear both sides and how things don't always work out, but I think painting that clear picture for people, it's important.
Yeah, because it's not about it working out as if the goal was the point.
Yeah,
It's you getting through it.
it's
Like,
not the results. It's not the
no,
destination. It's
it's
the journey.
it's
Yeah,
it's totally the journey. It's your life. I mean, you can only walk it. Like, you can only get from here to tomorrow. Like,
right.
it's only you. And so if we
Well said.
focus so much on goals, like I just think we're missing the fact that no, we're living through it, and some things are very difficult, and just being vulnerable with that, I think, is really important.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, those are, again, the celebrating progress and offer feedback. I mean, like we've talked about this, like, and avoid pressuring people. Like if you know somebody who, is considering it, I mean, respect boundaries, the pace that they're comfortable
Yeah.
proceeding. I mean, this is all, I think you understand that. And I think hopefully people hear this, they don't think that, that this is going to be easy based on our conversation. Hopefully we made this abundantly clear that
Not
that
easy.
this is not an easy thing for anyone. And I
Mhm.
mean, again, and you've stepped into it, you've leaned into it, and it's about
Right.
living your life and doing what you want to do, because you only get that one life. So make the
Right.
most of it. And I did want to, before we wrap, I did want to talk briefly about this one inspiring story that I did some research before the conversation, and I didn't know this about Oprah Winfrey, but she, I don't know if you know much about her backstory, but she initially was working as a news anchor in Chicago, and she decided to, in 1983, take a leap of faith. She agreed to co-host this low-rated talk show called AM Chicago, and it was a
Oh, I
complete
think I know
departure.
that.
Yeah, well, I didn't know this until today. It was a complete departure, it says, from her role as a news anchor, because she had this like stable, comfortable job in the broadcasting industry, and she's, AM Chicago was struggling, and her friends were telling her, Oprah's friends were telling her, no, you should really consider not doing this because it might damage your career, reputation, whatever. But she saw it as, you know what? I'm going to lean into this because I believe that I have this. She believed in herself, and she felt like she had this ability to connect with people on a more personal level, and she felt like she could to kind of transform it in a sense. And she used her empathetic kind of conversational tone to draw a larger audience. Actually, her authenticity, it actually grew the following of that AM Chicago show. And then in 1985 it was renamed the Oprah Winfrey Show. They're like, this is your own show now. Like, it's been 2 years.
So the other one doesn't even exist.
They don't mention much about the co-host on the article I read. It was like, that co-host is gone. Like, we're not even going to consider them. But it became the number one talk show in Chicago. So you go within 2-3 years, you go from this TV co-hosting gig that you have going, and then you take on this co-hosting job and something that's kind of it's failing and it's not doing well, and you just have this resilience or this belief in yourself that this is actually something that can be turned around, and that you can do it. And it became again, it's just a powerhouse. I mean, she won multiple daytime Emmys, it says, but I mean, like, she had to embrace a new opportunity. And it very much was a step into the unknown. Like, her friends and other people were telling her, like, look, like, this is actually a bad idea. You should step away from that.
Stick with step down. Like, a step away from, exactly.
And she had all these people telling her that, but she said, no, I'm gonna stick to what I think I can do. Like, she felt like she was good at being this. She felt she had this talent to connect with others on a more empathetic level, and then she felt like she had a skill, and she kind of had that belief, like you said, and I think that's important to recognize, is that you, again, know what your values are, know what you believe in, and really start to think about how you can embrace new opportunities, and don't treat them as necessarily challenges, but maybe actual true doors that are opening for you, right? I think there's a way to look at these things and not necessarily view them as stressful situations. And I think that's kind of what I'm gaining from not just this topic or from the Oprah example, but you as well, Stephanie, like how far you've come and what you've done. And I know we're going pretty long here. It's almost been an hour. I do want to let you have the floor and kind of offer your last final thoughts, insights, maybe anything you want to share with the rest of the viewers and listeners.
Honestly, I just want to say Chris is amazing. You need to stay tuned to his podcast because he's bringing on just incredible people that I've already met on X. If you want to embrace change and get out of your comfort zone, X is the place, because that's all it's been doing lately is change. As you can see, like, everything seems to be changing. New features are being added, but no, honestly, like, if you connect with me, don't connect with me. I would love to connect with you. So please do find me on X. That's probably where I'll be most of the time. Find us in Spaces, both Chris and I, because
Yep.
I think we bounce into rooms all the time now. And so, yeah, no, dude, I just think this is awesome. I think people need to follow you and just keep listening and letting that light turn on, because, you know, we need to spread more of that. I think there's enough other stuff in the world, and it should be tempered with some of these good things. And also because I think when things are difficult, yeah, we need to remember that life isn't about the results, it's about living, and we got to live and support each other in that. And man, I could tell you some things, but you know, Colorado is just one example. But like courage and like having that resilience, I'd take that. I would take that and live out in a field if I had to, because that's worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. At King Ari Press. Make
Yes.
sure you follow Stephanie. Feel free to follow me at Positively Chris. If not, that's fine too. But definitely follow Stephanie. And I appreciate you being here, Stephanie. Thanks for your time today. And again, you've just been a fantastic guest. And
Thank
again,
you.
I encourage people to again join us in Spaces. Find this podcast and make sure you listen to it back. Share it with people who you think might actually benefit. Again, Stephanie, I appreciate you being here, and maybe hopefully this helps people or inspire folks to consider stepping outside of their own comfort zones as well.
I hope so. Thanks,
Thank you
Chris.
so much. Yep. Bye.
Bye.